My pregnant wife shut me out and favored my daughter from a previous marriage. I finally lost it and said terrible things, it turns out. She was afraid of being compared to my ex, so I'm a 30-year-old guy, and my wife is 26. We've been together for about 4 years now. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Leah from a previous relationship back in my college days. That relationship ended pretty abruptly after Leah was born, because my ex admitted to cheating and said she wasn't ready to be a mom. Leah absolutely adores my wife. They're like two peas in a pod. My ex, on the other hand, barely has anything to do with Leah or me, except for stirring up some drama every now and then. She didn't want any custody or visitation rights, so for all practical purposes, my wife has become Leah's mom. Now here's where things get tricky. My wife is almost 8 months pregnant, and she's been pretty much shutting me out this entire pregnancy. It's been really tough feeling so ignored and hurt. When we first found out she was pregnant, I was in the middle of making breakfast. She told me the news, and of course I was super excited. Since it was an unplanned pregnancy, I asked her how she was feeling about it. She was all smiles and tears, talking about how excited she was. I picked her up, showered her with kisses, and told her I couldn't wait for us to be parents. All seemed good then. She went all out to announce the pregnancy to everyone else. There were balloons, boxes, t-shirts, and mugs that said Best Big Sister for Leah. I figured she kept it casual with me because she wanted to see how I felt before celebrating. But when her sister asked how I liked my announcement box, my wife just shrugged and said I didn't get one because this wasn't my first time having a baby. Ouch. Trying to attend ultrasound appointments was like pulling teeth. She'd come up with excuses like not wanting me to miss work or disrupt Leah's routine. At one of the ultrasounds, when the tech mentioned how strong the baby's heartbeat was and asked if I thought it was beautiful, my wife immediately cut in saying it wasn't my first child, so it wasn't that special for me. I was floored and quickly told everyone there that it was indeed one of the most special moments of my life. That made things pretty awkward. One night, I heard Leah and my mother-in-law laughing in the living room. I walked in and saw Leah feeling my wife's belly, excited about the baby moving. My wife had let Leah and her mom feel the baby move before me. I was a bit hurt, but tried to stay positive and said how happy I was. Later that night, my wife was poking her belly and laughing. When I asked if I could feel too, she shot me down, saying I had already felt a baby move with Leah and nothing could top that. She's been feeling pretty rough throughout the pregnancy, but refuses to let me help her. If I bring her a snack, she gives it to Leah. If I try to rub her feet, she asks me to play with Leah instead. She's constantly putting Leah's needs ahead of her own, even when she's struggling. Like this one time we were at the zoo, and she started feeling really sick with cramps and dizziness. I wanted to take her to the hospital, but she insisted we stay so Leah could see the aviary. Eventually, her dad showed up to take her to the doctor. She didn't even tell me he was coming, which was a shocker. Another time, we were watching Leah play in a local kids' sport event. I casually asked my wife if she thought our child would be into sports, arts, or science. She shut me down, saying it was Leah's moment and we shouldn't talk about someone who wasn't even born yet. It feels like she's always showcasing her baby bump to everyone else but hides it from me. She even pulls her shirt down when I walk into the room. One playful moment. She sat on me and her bump was right in my face. I ran my hands over it and told her she was the most beautiful woman ever, and I couldn't wait to see her as our family grows. For the first time, I felt her bump and whispered how excited I was to meet our baby. But she brushed it off, saying my ex had a bigger bump and it must have been fun watching Leah move around in there. I tried to assure her that Leah was special, but this pregnancy was special in a different way. She started crying and left the room. I'm absolutely sure she's not cheating on me and never has, but I just don't understand why she's shutting me out like this. I just can't figure out why she doesn't want me to be happy about the baby. Everything else in our relationship seems totally normal. She's affectionate, initiates intimacy, and always brags about what a great husband I am and how well I've handled this pregnancy. We've planned for our future, have regular date nights, typical couple stuff. But we had this huge fight recently. I had a break between clients at work and decided to surprise her. I went to a local baby store and bought a bunch of stuff she had pinned for the nursery on her Pinterest board. I also got her flowers, a certificate for a prenatal massage, and her favorite food. When I got home, she seemed really grateful, but after I returned to work, she returned all the baby items. She said she did it to buy stuff for Leah so she wouldn't feel left out. I lost it. I cried for the first time in our marriage and yelled, saying having a child with her was the worst mistake I ever made. I even said that my deadbeat ex at least gave me the chance to know my unborn child. I told her I didn't care about the baby because she wouldn't let me bond with it. I really do care, though. I even told her I hoped she was as miserable as she made me and that she should get ready for a custody battle. She just said, "I don't care about the baby, that she'd die before letting me take the baby from her. I've begged her to let me interact with her and our baby. I asked if her therapist had any insights into why she was acting this way, but she said no. When I asked if the baby was mine, which I regretted immediately, she got super angry and said she'd do a paternity test if I wanted one. I didn't go through with it. Instead, I called her parents to come over because we were having a disagreement and then checked into a hotel to avoid stressing her and the baby out. I'm staying at an Airbnb now, trying to figure out what to do next. I miss her so much and don't understand why she's acting like this. I've apologized for what I said, but I can't take it back. I'm worried that when the baby is born, she won't want to be a family with me or let me be involved in the baby's life. A mutual friend told me she's really distraught and loves me, but her actions say otherwise. Even when I ask her to change, nothing happens. She asked if I was unhappy in our marriage when I suggested counseling. I said no, I just wanted to be more involved in the pregnancy since she's been keeping me in the dark. I asked if she was unhappy and if she wanted a divorce, and she seemed genuinely hurt that I would even think that. Some people have suggested she might be resentful of my 5-year-old Leah, but I don't think that's it. She adores Leah and is probably her preferred parent. She does everything with her, like taking her to the park, museums, and school events. She even freaked out when her cousin made a comment about not bringing her stepdaughter to an event. She insisted that we don't use titles that make anyone feel left out, and she always includes Leah in everything. I've mentioned prenatal depression to her doctor, but she doesn't seem to fit that description. She's usually really happy unless I bring up the baby. Some people think I should see an attorney because she might not let me be at the birth, but am scared that will only make things worse. I know I should have sought counseling sooner. I thought her behavior was just due to pregnancy hormones since she'd been really sick and struggled with her weight. It's only now that I see her comments were signs of something deeper. Did you say all of that? I mean, she was definitely acting weird, but you really went overboard with some pretty unforgivable stuff. I always thought you were a decent guy. Oops, I messed up big time and I have already apologized. Though it probably doesn't mean much to her right now. I said some seriously hurtful things, stuff I'd been bottling up for months. I'd been begging her to let me in, to share what was going on with her, to let me help pick baby names and be a part of it all. It just built up and exploded. I was hurt then, and I still am. I really hope we can fix things because I want to be there for her and be a full-time dad to our child. The thought of splitting custody breaks my heart. So, it's been about a month since I posted. A lot of kind people on Reddit reached out, shared their advice and their own experiences, and wanted an update. After I posted, I was stewing for a while, had a couple of drinks, and then I decided to call my father-in-law, Phil. He's super close to my wife, and I respect his opinion a lot. He's been happily married for a long time and has great relationships with his family. I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of our issues, but since he knew I was staying in an Airbnb instead of our home, it was clear we were having problems. Phil has more of an old-school mindset and asked what I had to lose by putting pressure on her to talk. I told him I was afraid I'd push her away even more, but he basically said, "Dude, you're already living separately from your pregnant wife and freaking out about a potential divorce. What do you have to lose?" He advised me to man up, go back home, and lay it all out. So the next day, I decided to go for it. My in-laws asked Ed if they could take Leah, our daughter, to buy some sparklers for the upcoming holiday and have her stay the night at their place. I agreed. I showed up at our house the next day with flowers and stuff to make dinner. My wife was surprised and asked what I was doing there. I told her, "I live here, and I want to sit down and talk." I apologized for my actions and words, and then I asked her to finally tell me what was going on. At first, she tried to brush it off, saying everything was fine. But I told her how heartbroken I was and reminded her of all the tough times we'd gone through together, how we fought for each other, and now she was lying to my face. We both sat there, and she cried for about 30 minutes. Eventually, she opened up. She said she felt like our relationship would end if she was honest. She admitted that this would be her first kid, and it bothered her more than she thought it would that it wasn't my first. She worried that if my ex had wanted to raise Leah with me, we'd still be together, and our marriage wouldn't matter. She was jealous and felt like my past was intruding on our future. She even told me that a close friend once said soulmates wouldn't have kids with other people first. That messed with her head and made her feel like she was just my second choice. She found old pictures of my ex on social media and couldn't stop comparing herself to her, especially her pregnant body. She feared that our baby wouldn't be on equal footing with Leah in my eyes. She worried about things like, what if the baby had a disability, or didn't enjoy the things we do as a family, or what if Leah and the baby didn't get along? She even found herself wishing I hadn't had Leah so she wouldn't feel all this anxiety. She freaked out thinking I wouldn't bond with the baby like I did with Leah, especially since I'm so vocal about how much being a dad means to me. She said that the anking about all the new things we would experience with this baby made her excited initially but also scared her. She didn't want her pregnancy and our new baby to feel like just another stressor instead of a highlight of my life. She shared countless articles she'd read where men admitted they didn't bond with their kids until they were a bit older, or how parents become more relaxed and seemingly less caring with each subsequent child. She felt like she was ruining our family dynamic and coming between me and Leah. For instance, we had planned a day at the zoo, but she cried on the way to the hospital because Leah had to go home early. She was afraid Leah would hate her for cutting the zoo time short and that I'd be upset spending my time off at the hospital instead of doing fun activities with Leah. While I work, Leah and my wife spend a lot of time out of the house going to the library, local parks, etc. They love biking together, and we all bike on weekends too, enjoying the local trails. So, because of my wife's pregnancy, she hasn't been able to do as much, and we've been sticking to more indoor activities. My wife mentioned that while I'm at work, Leah has been saying she hates her because she can't ride her new bike as often anymore. I told her I'd talk to Leah because that's just not okay. But my wife asked me not to since Leah is already going through a lot of changes soon, and she herself missed our biking time as well. A couple of months ago, my wife suggested that we read stories together. Leah chose the first book, and my wife picked the second one, which was her favorite childhood story for me to read to the baby and Leah. It helps promote brain activity and bonding, which sounded great. After that, I read another book that Leah chose. But then, the next day while I was at work, Leah tore the pages out of the book my wife had picked. She said she was going to tell me, but her friend, the same friend who claims we aren't soulmates, told her it'd think she was making it up just to, come between me and Leah. I asked my wife why she didn't tell me any of this, and she said she didn't feel comfortable because her feelings didn't even make sense to her. She wanted me to spend time with Leah so Leah wouldn't feel left out or jealous. But then she'd feel upset that I wasn't spending more time with her. She told me she loves Leah but wishes we had our first child together. She felt guilty and upset when I gave attention to her and our unborn baby, fearing I'd think she was trying to come between me and Leah. When I realized something was really wrong, I asked if she needed therapy or anything. She admitted she knew she was acting poorly, but didn't want to face the reality of her missed experiences. She doubled down on her feelings, pushing me away and not letting me care. She felt her first pregnancy was a bad experience because of her actions. I apologized for making her feel like she couldn't come to me. She said she found forums where people called posters evil for their feelings about their stepchildren and feared I'd feel the same. She said if I'd told her I felt about Leah the way she felt about Leah, it would have upset her, so she couldn't see how I wouldn't be upset too. We both cried a lot. I reassured her, telling her how much I loved her and how excited I was that she was my chosen family and my soulmate. I said the universe brought her to Leah and me for a reason. She apologized for treating me poorly and wanted to make it right. She said she was surprised when I yelled during my meltdown and realized she might have messed up beyond repair. We continued to cry, and then she asked if I wanted to feel the baby. Of course I said yes, and we cried even more. It turned out to be a really great evening. I made dinner, and we laughed about how stressed I was that I even went to Reddit for advice. She read the post and cried again, feeling better after, reading comments from women in similar situations. The week after was a bit awkward due to the tension, but I knew things were getting better when she woke me up on Saturday, whispering that the baby wanted blueberry pancakes. I don't think I've ever made pancakes so fast I couldn't stop smiling. We even went to a pool party a few days later, and she let me choose her swimsuit, a huge deal since she usually wears baggy clothes around me. We took family pictures, and on the way home, she asked me to feel her belly. The baby was hiccuping, and it was a first we could share together. She even lets me help when she's sick now, instead of making excuses about Leah. I've learned that when she comes over and lifts her arm with her back to me, it's my cue to lift her belly up. I spend a lot of time rubbing and talking to her belly, massaging her feet, legs, back, shoulders, and hips. She's sore everywhere now. The first 500 times, it made me cry, but it's such a relief to be involved. I never thought being tasked with finding the most random food items at 2 a.m. would be fun, but it is. It still sucks that I missed out on a lot, and it sucks for her too. She gets emotional and says a weight has been lifted off her and everything is easier now, regretting not talking to me sooner. I've been working to ease some of my wife's guilt. For example, I got a pull-behind trailer for her bike from the local shop. Now I can pull her in it with a small fan and ice pack so Leah can ride her bike. I've taken time off work to spend more time with them both. We're all in therapy now. Leah's therapist says she's securely attached to both of us, enjoys our time together, and is coping well. Some of her behavior was due to another situation that we've resolved, and now she's excited to be a big sister. My wife was worried Leah could sense her shifted attitude, but Leah's only complaint about my wife was forgetting her candy once, and it took 32 minutes for the store to deliver it. My wife is working through her negative feelings in therapy, and we're getting closer to baby time, finishing up preparations. She still needs lots of reassurance, but we're getting there. So she often brings up my ex, and I've found it helps to steer the conversation back to positive memories we share. For instance, when she starts asking about my past, I'll redirect by saying something like, "I don't really want to talk about that. Hey, remember our first house, our first vacation, our first kiss or date?" Talking about those memories makes me fall even more in love with her. Like, "Do you remember when you and Leah made me that thing? It's still one of my prized possessions." It really upsets me that my wife struggled for so long with her feelings. I believe that talking about it out loud took a lot of the power away from her negative emotions. We all know how awful it feels when you have thoughts that seem alien to you, especially during a really rough time mentally. Honestly, I should have supported our relationship and her mental health way sooner. I let it slide when she brushed me off, not realizing she needed help. I'm super thankful to everyone who reached out or gave advice. I posted all this with my wife's permission because she hopes it might help someone else going through similar issues. Long story short, My wife was facing insecurity and some mental health problems and didn't feel she could talk to me because it involved my biological daughter. Thankfully, she got great advice from my father-in-law and all of you, and we talked it out. After some awkward moments, things are kind of back to normal now. I'm more involved in her pregnancy, and everyone, including Leah, is excited for the baby to arrive. One commenter asked how my wife is doing regarding her friend, since it seems she didn't have these insecurities before. Well, we ended you. P. disinviting that friend from our home. It's tricky because she's part of my wife's larger friend group. My wife was hesitant since this friend has been through tough times recently. But just the other night, my wife had a girls' night. As I was leaving, I told my wife she looked beautiful and wished them a good time. When I got back, my wife told me that her friend said in front of everyone, "Sure, he's saying nice things now, but after the baby, he'll be all over you about your body changes." My wife told her that was a mean and untrue thing to say, even if it was a joke. I made it clear to my wife that I don't want this person around right now. We're in a really vulnerable, emotional place, and it's obvious this friend doesn't wish us well. My wife agreed.